Am I right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. 100%.
Introduce yourself.
Couldn't have said it better. I'm Rick Moss, and I'm with the African American Museum and Library at Oakland.
Beautiful place.
Yeah,
that place is gorgeous.
Thank you, because that's you know, we want to keep it that way because of course it represents the best. What I like to think, it represents the best of what we have to offer in terms of our art, history, and culture. So if I'm the steward of AAMLO, then it's going to look that way, and hopefully that's going to also be reflected in the kinds of public programs and exhibitions that we host.
You host some good stuff there.
Thank you. We try.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. I was at the book fair.
Just recently?
The one before that. That was over 100 people there. Most of them were women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I learned so much. And I was telling people that black women are taking the banner up.
I think women in general, and I think that the world can use a little more estrogen.
Estrogen?
Yeah, in leadership
What's
positions.
that? Oh yeah. That, oh my God. Yeah, estrogen. Yep. Use some of that stuff too.
And you know, it's
name a couple of gallons of it.
And you know, it's actually happening. And there was an article in the Chronicle a few days ago, and the columnist was talking about, you know, women in leadership positions, and he mentioned Oakland. Of course, that's just one example. But
yeah.
The mayor now, the police chief, the fire chief, and others, and that may not necessarily be a bad thing. Men have been pushing things around and throwing our weight around for thousands of years, and maybe we can do for a change.
Well, you know,
or at least, you know, some co-participation.
You know, I was talking to a lady the other day, and I closed my eyes, and you know, and she was talking about education. She's 70. She just made her 70th birthday, and she just graduated from UC Berkeley.
All right.
She didn't even have a high school education. She studied and read.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
To get a high school diploma.
Right.
At 58 years old.
Well, I think that's wonderful. But you know, we also have a lot of fools who are running around here with degrees and diplomas. So you don't have to. If you don't have one, that doesn't mean you're not smart. You're not intelligent. You can't. You know, you can't do the things that you believe that you can do.
But women are doing it. Is my point.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, women. I love that.
Been doing it all along. I love it. If not for women, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we came from there.
And speaking of education, of course, you know that the national theme for Black History Month 2017 is the crisis in black education. As every year, the Carter G. Woodson's Association for the Study of African American Life and History establishes a national theme, and this year is crisis in black education. Some might think that's an oxymoron.
Really?
It's really serious, something serious to think about.
It is. I was looking at the stats. The historical black colleges are picking up again.
Are they?
Yes.
Enrollment?
Enrollment picking up again.
Well,
in the South.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Here in California and in the West, we're not doing that as well.
Oh, I know that. You walk on any public university campus, or any, definitely private university campus, and you're going to see very few of us represented in the student body at all. Of course, if you go to the arena or to the court or the field, we're overly represented.
Right.
But,
you know, the thing about that is the fact that I go back to 1959, 1960 when I was hitchhiking in this country. And I was telling people I slept in the Mississippi Delta. I slept in bayous because that's what the safest place to sleep, because nobody could get to you. You can hear people coming if you listen.
You weren't scared of the snakes and the coons and everything else in the swamp. Okay.
I grew up in Louisiana, and I learned how to sleep in moss.
All right.
You know, how to hang in a tree. I did all that stuff.
Okay.
The biggest thing was I was looking at this garbage can, and I was in Virginia. And I was looking at this garbage can, and I was really hungry. And a guy said to me, he says, everywhere there's a big market, you go at night and they put the food out.
Right.
And the black hobos had a much more severe life than the white hobos. because the bulls, they were the train cops.
Right.
They would come in. I saw them in, what was that, in Amarillo, I think it was. Denton, Texas. They beat this man to within an inch of his life because he was right. But they didn't do that to the white ones. And when I tell people about history, and I tell them where we've come from and where we're going, and what I'm getting at is every time I go to your place and I look at that place, I cry.
Yeah, we should. If you think about what we've gone through, it
brings me back.
It makes you want to cry.
You know.
But you know, crying out of strength and not out of any kind of a weakness in people.
It reminded me of those days when I was on the road.
So let me ask you, were you on the road because you had to be, you needed to take care of yourself, or were you just in search of something and you just had to move?
My mom passed when I was 12. I never got over that.
You never get over your mom's passing, no matter what age you are.
Isn't that a fact?
That's the truth.
Isn't that a fact? And I was, the gang wars in LA, my dad we came from Louisiana to LA because the doctors, the great doctors that were going to save my mom, they didn't save her. She died at 32. And the gang wars got the Crips, the Bloods, the Saracens, the Surveyors. That was the start of the drive-by shooting and all the killing. You know, and my friend, we were sitting in the pool hall, and the guy walked in with a shotgun and blew him away. The brains all over the side of my face. You know, I couldn't get that. I couldn't wipe that off.
Right.
I went home and took a shower. I must have showered 1,000,000 times that month, and I didn't sleep for months and months and months. And I was 15 then. You know, and I'm sitting there going, "What's wrong with this picture?"
Right.
So my dad and I got into it one day about my attitude. So I just went down in LA, jumped on a train, ended up in Sedona, Arizona. Didn't have no damn idea where I was going.
Which is a very interesting place.
Which is, that's Todos Santos.
Isn't that something?
That's the holy city in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you feel any of that in Sedona? You were just moving.
I was scared.
Yeah.
Because I slept out in the desert, you know. I had a little robe, a little sleeping bag thing, and I slept out in the desert in the warm sand. And I was sitting there, you know, God, where am I going?
Yeah.
You know, and I was scared. But I learned so much about people, about black people on the road. I hitchhiked all through Mississippi and Alabama. I ran from the Klan for 3 days one day.
They were looking for you?
Oh, they were going to kill us. They used to kill black men. You used to see black bodies laying on the road. So when people talking about history, you know, history is there. We need to take care of the people behind us and the people in front of us. That is what our history is all about.
Absolutely. And it's a cardinal sin to forsake the sacrifices of those who preceded us. And I think that's the greatest shame that when I think about our current situation and condition, or just like we're just running in place. It's like, you know, those sacrifices weren't made for us to just stay still and be apathetic and complacent and not push forward in the face of adversity, because it's all we've known is the adversity, you know, to some extent. And I don't want to by any means discount the joy and the happiness that we've had being with each other and coming through these challenges. But we got to a point where it just stopped, hit a wall, and we didn't do anymore. I was
talking to a bunch of seniors, a whole lot of them, about 15 of them, on Sunday after church. And one man said that the new generation, they're not concerned about history. They wear all the garb, they wear all the stuff, the outside, but inside they're flakes and fakes, he said. You know, and I looked at him and went, whoa, that's kind of out there. He said, really? He said, we have done more for our race and our country. He said, the younger people. I said, there are younger people.
Yes.
You know, and let me tell you something. If you ever go on Facebook, pull up the name Vanessa James. Vanessa James is a young black Frenchman who she just won the European title. I tell anybody, we can do any damn thing we want to do.
The European title in what?
Skating.
Okay.
Figure skating. The girl is so beautiful. And they talk about this country, where I've been into 23 countries in this world. I've been all over most of the world. We're the only one that talk about dark people. Everybody else accepts everybody for who they are, what they are. You know,
Yeah.
no, you come here, chocolate and all this stuff. Hell no.
Well, that's the deep psychosis of America. You know that, of course.
You know, I was in Tangier. Man, I saw this chick. She was French and black, and she was dark as an ebony on the keys on the piano.
Right.
But boy, you talking about some beautiful women. Woo!
Yeah.
They're educated. Hello there, American. How are you doing today? And it's scared. I was like, oh God, what do I say now? You know.
But someone actually had a simple conversation with you. Actually spoke to you like you're a human being and that you exist.
Yeah.
Right. And we go through
Yeah.
America. We ignore people. We don't look at anyone. We don't want to acknowledge each other. Not even a good morning or a hello.
Hell no.
So.
What's up?
Uh-huh.
What it is. Not even the psychology of how do you feel today.
Right. Or acknowledging your
You know.
existence even.
And getting
The fact
back
that
to
you're
your
there.
place,
Mhm.
it's like mind-boggling.
Mm.
When I saw the bus,
Yeah.
it brought back Rosa Parks.
People would not let me take down the bus.
Really?
You know, because that was for a certain exhibition period, and
And it's still there. I saw it.
Well, people don't want it to come down. It was a temporary show.
Really?
There's a feeling, there's something there that resonates with people when they see that. Even before they really start reading anything, they know. And so I've left it up over a couple of years now.
It's 2 years
It's
now.
gonna have to come down and go somewhere. We have to do something with it. But right now, no, there's an energy around it that's really important. But I want to get back to talking about young people. I don't ever need to disparage our current generations, because every now and then we'll get an opportunity to talk to some really bright and forward-thinking.
We got some movers and shakers out there.
Yes, we do, and we don't hear about them. That's the thing.
That is the point.
We don't
appreciate them either.
Yes, because we see all the, of course, all the negative is
Right.
portrayed. The subculture is portrayed in those things that cast us in a negative light are. But I'm always so encouraged and delighted when I talk to our young people who are really involved in asking serious questions and taking all of these issues in a whole new direction for the 21st
Right.
century. And it says to me, you know what? It's their turn. It is their turn to do this. And I look and I just kind of smile and say, it's like, not my turn. We've had ours.
Right.
And they're moving forward.
But you know what? I would like to see the graduation rate come up in the inner city schools.
Oh, 100%.
And I don't have no faith in the system, but you have to do what you have to do.
Let me tell you. Let me share this with you. And it's disappointing, and it goes back to the national theme for Black history, about the crisis in Black education. I received a Institute of Museum and Library Studies grant for sustenance of African American institutions and organizations. And this grant could be used to acquire new audiences, young audiences, or for staff training, because there are not deep numbers of people who are going to follow in sort of my footsteps. For example, African American curators are people interested in the kinds of careers that you might have in museums and or libraries, since we are both at AAMLO, in the branch of the Oakland Public Library. So my idea in the project was to train a group of 8th grade middle school classes in certain areas of museum studies or library sciences, and integrate that and use our permanent exhibition,
Right.
The African American community in Oakland 1890 to 1990, as the core curriculum around which then they could begin to think about possible careers and not just jobs in these fields. But do you know that for 3 years I tried to get someone's attention at OUSD, the Oakland Unified School District, to help recruit these students? I went into I couldn't get into the schools because no one would return my call. But for 3 years I was basically ignored. Do you know I have to return the money because there's nobody that I can work with in that sense to get our kids in these kinds of programs. It's if nobody.
And we have some brilliant kids.
I know that, but there's an opportunity I thought completely missed, and that's just recently, in the last 2 years. this has happened. So I'm speaking about that. It's something that I experienced and was so thoroughly disappointing and disheartening to me that there was this wall around education, especially when it involves these children come from underrepresented communities. Nobody really wanted to
Underrepresented, in a lot of ways, forgotten.
No, totally.
Yeah, forgotten.
And you try to get to them, and there's this wall around them. Why the resistance? So I got no cooperation, but that's just a recent experience that.
Well, one of the things is, tell people where your place is.
Yes, the African American Museum and Library at Oakland is at 659 14th Street in downtown Oakland.
Can't
Two
miss it.
blocks, you cannot miss us. We're 2 blocks west of City Hall. We're right on the corner, right near the the 980 freeway. If you go to the 980 freeway, you've gone too far.
You've gone 250 feet too far. But you know what?
What's that?
Some of the presentations in there are so classic of who and what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people about that.
Well, when we were sitting to conceive of an idea for a permanent history exhibition, first of all, before you can even say the word permanent history, it's already obsolete, it's already not permanent before you can even complete it. But what I said to the team when we were thinking about the kind of show the exhibition was going to be, the permanent show was going to be, I said, I don't want to see a repeat of how we reacted to something. I don't want to see any long drawn out story about slavery and overcoming. I said, I want to talk about the.
A lot of folks ain't gonna like you.
They did not, and they did
I know
not.
they did.
And it was.
You're talking about progress, moving forward.
I'm talking about us being actors on the stage and not always reacting to something that was done to us.
Right.
How we have lived our lives since we were, kidnapped and brought over here as exiles. But the things that we have done because we did them, and I wanted to focus on that and the joy of being a community, the joy that we have in being with each other. So those are the kinds of things you see.
Taking care of each other, one of the things I was talking about.
So you see that.
Take care of the one in the back of you, one in the front of you.
You're not going to
say hello, I love you something.
Right.
Am I right?
You're right. And I didn't want it to be a show of either victims or victimizers. It's not the story that I want to tell. So I think that's reflected in the show, and I do know that the public gets it. And in a lot of ways, they're relieved to
It's
hear
positive.
It's a positive show, right? Without being Pollyannish and ignoring the difficulties that exist.
What was that, Pollyannish?
Pollyannish.
You're telling your age.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, you know what? You can't hide it. Yeah, that's right.
People don't even know who Pollyanna was.
That's right. But say what? Yeah.
This is what we're talking about. We're talking about getting off of the negativity of who we are and getting into the positive elements. Because, J. Edgar Hoover came out with that psychological aggressiveness in minorities and black people and Mexicans.
Isn't it funny that the most psychopathic among them are always trying to diagnose somebody else? They're just as crazy.
We don't need to come into the present, do we?
Well, you know what? If the shoe fits.
If the shoe fits.
I'm just saying, you know what side you're on?
Yeah.
You know if you're on the right side. And those who aren't, know it. But there's a blackness and there's a darkness that's hovering around the nation. And these are the materialists against the spiritualists.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. I hear you.
Now the materialists, they're running this thing to the ground because that's what they want.
That's what they want.
Right, but it will not prevail.
Negativism, I was 7 years old when I heard my uncle and my dad talking about the mass hangings. 7. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine that? Mm-hmm. I knew what they were saying.
Did you know what they were talking about?
I knew what they were talking about because I heard it so much. But my point is, we don't need to expound on so much negativity of yesterday.
Right.
Do you know that riding the trains was a great experience? I met so many people of so many cultures and so what has happened is I tell our people, be an amalgamate of everybody, not just one person.
Right.
And that's happiness.
Yes, and because we learn from each other, and I think all communities have something to share. As human beings, we all have something to share. But you can only get past that. I think, and this is just one man's opinion, is that if you have within you, if you've thought about these things yourself, as yourself, however you identify your ego or whatever, and you say, yeah, I exist, I'm here, but why am I here? And what is the purpose? of my existing, just as a soul? Well, it's to connect with other souls and other people who are here. Well, you can only do that if you're secure in yourself.
Right.
And not
Security,
being afraid.
self-security is a big thing.
Yeah, and so then you're not afraid and or ashamed to show love with the capital L, and let others exist and be.
You know what?
Space.
I'm gonna tell you something
What's
about that. One of the most comfortable places I've ever been was Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah, why?
God, because the way they treat you there. You know, everybody has a certain level of respect. If we could have that in this country, you know how far we can go.
Oh, yeah, you know how far we need to go? Just on that subject alone?
Yeah. You know, and I got to throw a name out there, and I hope she don't get mad at me. But her name is Nikita Vaughn. She's on Facebook, and Nikita travels the world.
Okay.
She's a very, very beautiful, you know, plus, well-rounded woman, very intelligent from what I can understand. She's totally traveling. And that's one of the things about exploding and expanding your mind. When I went places in the world, I was the only black person there.
But that didn't matter because you were just another person. Right?
Oh, well, how should I say this? My promiscuity was in front of everything.
Okay, I got it.
Well,
that was another time.
That was another time.
All right.
I was young in my 20s, but I learned so much. I learned a little bit of Japanese. I learned a little bit of Tagalog. I learned a little bit of German. Wherever I went, you know, a little bit of Arabic, you know. And this expanded my mind and enabled me to get into the nuclear power industry and the mechanics industry and within the world itself.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing of it is, we have come a long way. Let's talk about something. The Moors ruled Spain, what they call Gaul, for 800, almost 900 years.
Yeah. To think about that. That's
you tell white people that, they go, oh my God, what happened? You know,
I was working on this. I have worked rather on this children's booklet that McDonald's is going to put out for Black History Month. At least they're sponsoring it, and I think there are 5 African American owned McDonald's franchises between Richmond here and San Pablo, and they're going to distribute these. So they asked me, you know, what were my thoughts about who should be in, you know, what kind of booklet should they have, and I said, well, why don't we? I think maybe putting in California's African American pioneers should be in it because nobody knows anything about any of them, least of all our kids.
Right.
So we worked on this booklet, and one of the characters I put in there first, even though this person never really lived, was the fictional character called Queen Calafia, from whom California derives its name. And I was explaining to them, they said, well, should we have a fictional character in here with real people? And I said, yeah, it's important, and this is the reason it's important. Because you have to understand what a surprise and what a shock it might be to many people to read this fact that this author in the late 16th century, I believe it was, or 15th century, wrote a novel about, Spanish author, wrote a novel about this island ruled by a black queen and her Amazons. And why would the Spaniard, be writing this? Because in his lived history in Spain, they had a long history of an association with the Moors. The Moors. And so they were very used to them being in power.
That's where the Black Irish came from.
Yes. So I said, yeah, so we should put it in there because we're always taught psychologically how we've never done anything, influenced anything, been anywhere. I said, well, if those brothers were in Spain for 800 years, and you talk about the dark and swarthy Spaniards, it ain't from the weather. Those brothers weren't standing around with their hands in their pockets, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so there's a hell of a lot of African blood flowing through Spain.
That's right.
So why is that important? Because those Spaniards who were the explorers came over here, and in their culture, they saw black folks.
That's right.
So in their culture, before they were able to overthrow the Moors, they're still thinking of that time, 800 years. So it seems not a stretch that they would have a black character
it took
in
them,
their
midst.
myth.
It took them 40, almost 50 years to overthrow the Moors.
Well, yeah, because the Christians were fighting. Well, in fact, when the only reason that Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand could financed Columbus's trip to the so-called New World was because they had finally defeated the Moors in 1490.
Right.
You know, finally after hundreds of
50
years,
years.
and that was through an
56 years.
through an alliance
Yeah.
of other Christians
Right.
to get these folks out of
Now
here.
we're talking about Christians.
They were Christians.
Oh,
against,
yeah.
It was here we go
But
back
the
again,
Moors,
Christians against the
you know what
Muslims.
I laugh at? You know, the Moors taught the British people, the English people, to shower and to bathe.
They taught them the
And they
common
brought
bath.
them deodorant.
Yes, yeah. But we were the barbarians.
We were the barbarians.
Okay.
Hello.
So there you go, twisting, not knowing and understanding your history and being comfortable with yourself. So when someone starts talking about what we've never done in world history, you can just say, "Oh, excuse me."
You know what? Let me throw another stone at you.
Have you been to
I was
Alhambra?
up. I was up around the Great Lakes.
Mhm.
Where was I at? I went into Canada for a short time, and the Pequots, Pequot Indians, they're black. You know, and we had an array of black Indians all the way from the Apache Nation to the Chiricahua Nation, and all the way up to the Great Lakes.
Well, yes, we were parts of
And
those.
they still exist.
Yeah.
But nothing is said about their history.
No, nothing said much about the Native American history at all.
You know, and black people,
Talk about the Seminoles.
over
as well.
1 million people, slaves, you know, became, you know, part of that community.
Well, a lot of them did, and some of them were enslaved by them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they also didn't take kindly to us being part of the Union Army.
No, they didn't.
Tried to run them off their lands, you know. The
But my point is, we are everywhere.
We are, exactly.
We are everywhere.
And we are global people. And
We're
we've
global
begun
people.
to understand
And we don't
that,
understand
but
that.
we don't.
Yeah,
You
we
see,
don't understand that.
Because I don't want to say plot or conspiracy, is to keep us thinking that we are small, that nobody cares,
Ooh,
that we
have
ought to be
mercy,
happy
baby
that
boy. Thank you for
ought to
coming
be
today.
happy that you're here, that we brought you over here and exposed you to civilization.
You're listening to Thoughts of a Common Man with Charles the Chief Williams on Radio Valencia, the sounds of the mission.
My, that voice, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to bottle and can that voice and sell it. I sure in the hell am. If you're lonely tonight, the Chief will send you that voice in a can.
No, Chief, no.
Okay, then.
But hi, everybody. This is Gina, the producer, and I just wanted to remind everybody that today we are giving away tickets to What's in the Name, the Director's Cut by the lovely Miss Elva Hayes. And they're having an event at the Octopus Lounge on February 9th. If you want to win tickets, call 510-421-2013 when you hear the promo. Good luck!
Woo! Yo. We are atrocitating this situation here. I don't know what that word means.
I was going to ask it.
Don't go to Webster.
I learned one word a day. I'm going to go learn that one today. That's my word today.
Don't go to Webster.
The word for today
Yeah, we're talking about Black history right now.
It is Black History Month now,
Yeah.
so it comes up quick.
You know, and we're talking a lot of stuff. Tell me where you're going with your museum.
Right
What's
now,
your vision?
Well, I tell you what I'm working on now, and it doesn't have so much to do with AAMLO itself, but the wider vision and mission, and that is to establish the California African American Heritage Trail. So I've been working for the past 2 years, probably since we last talked. I don't know if I got a chance to mention this to you, but the idea is for every county in the state, and there are about 57 counties for which there was an African American presence, a significant presence, some kind of activity, I would like to acknowledge that through either a plaquing ceremony, listing to one of the various historic registers, either the National Register if it merits that, the California Historic Register, or local designation. But I would like to establish this as part of a cultural heritage tourism.
Mhm.
Also to let people know about the grand history, the long history of people of African descent in California, not just since Kaiser and World War II, but going back to days of exploration with the Spanish and Mexicans and the whole period, bringing us right up to the front. And these are all over the state. So I'm working, trying to get sponsorship and ideas, and I want this also to be a community, a local activity where people who are in these communities get involved, and also to advance the history. So that's what I'm working on right now, and we'll probably be working with, past my retirement. This is something that I would like to do, to leave as some kind of legacy, and I think it's important to do that. So that's what I'm working on right now, as as a special project in association with AAMLO. But we are looking to.
You know what I want to see?
What's that?
I'm gonna tell you what I want to see for AAMLO.
What's that?
I want to see the attendance come up.
Well,
I want people to take their kids there. You know what? Here we go talking about the flakes and the fakes again. You know, that old guy. I mean, 80. He was. The people. They were in their 80s.
okay.
You know, and they were very vocal. You know.
Yes, they.
But
have
you know,
to be.
don't be a fake or a flake. Take your children there. Give them some basics.
Right.
Give them the basis of who, what, why, when, what happened.
Yes.
You know, and get away from the negative stuff that's all over the street.
Right.
Get the positive stuff in there, because God, that's a beautiful place. I keep saying that.
You do, and thank you
That's
so
their
much.
case.
We are never going to attract huge numbers of people, especially as a library, since we don't circulate. We're a research.
Right.
I forgot to mention that we have 3 departments at AAMLO. We are a special branch of the Oakland Public Library.
Right.
We're non-circulating research branch, so we have a great reference department. We have a very, very significant archive that contains the papers, the photographs, diaries, three-dimensional
I
objects of
understand
Oakland's
that.
African
That's
American
good
community.
stuff.
And we have a museum component. So we have 3 departments in our building. And so we're not going to get a lot of people coming in to check out books, because we don't check out books. We are kind of
Just go
busy
see it.
scholars come in to research for books they write. So they're not going to be huge numbers there either. But where we do get large numbers is when we do our special programming, for example, our long-running Martin Luther King Jr. Day Film
Right.
Festival that we have every year.
Right.
Our Festival of Knowledge, where we talk about holistic healing and arts, and we have our folks there telling us how to eat well, right, take care of ourselves,
Mhm.
share old folk medicines that we all
Mhm.
use that your
I
grandmama
hear you.
used. So we keep that knowledge alive, and we get huge numbers. The American Black Beauty Doll Association
Mhm.
holds their annual festival every year. So those are the kinds of things we do to keep our culture alive and to expose people to different aspects of living. So that's what we really want to do, is to become that a greater conduit for that between the library and the community. So
You know
that's
what?
we're
Let me
working
tell you something. Having your kids know something positive, rather than a Ray on the corner with some knockoff Jordans and knockoff Ed Hardys on,
Yeah.
talking a whole lot of stuff with some silly gold that ain't really gold.
Yeah.
Take your kids out, give them a different facet of life to look at. You know, that's what life is choice. You know,
You know what I love most about the show and,
What?
and what we host is it always maintains our dignity,
right.
at all costs.
But you know what?
Mhm.
Dignity is one thing that I talk about all the time.
Mhm.
You know, and getting back to Nikita Vaughn,
Mhm.
you see a lot of people in the black community. I ask, where have you gone? This lady has been around the world, you know, and we as people don't do that.
Mhm.
You know, well, where have you gone? Where have you explored?
Mhm.
You know, and I took this girl out to the Napa Valley last year, and she was crying. We went into this bistro, and we had really good food,
Yeah.
you know, and we were sitting there, and she said, where has this been all my life?
It's been there. We don't have access or exposure to any of that. It's like people coming to museums. Chief.
Yeah.
That's a learned kind of a behavior. Your parents need to have done that, or wherever they, whatever they expose you. And so the theory is then that you may take your children to do things, similarly. You may expose them to other kinds of cultural activities. And we don't often do that, or don't do it enough. And I would say not just African Americans. I'm saying as Americans, we're becoming largely stagnant and ignorant of culture and history. Becomes not important because you can look at anything you want on the internet. You don't have to know it. Just know where you
Just
can
look
find
it up.
it. So,
You know,
so that's what I think.
there's a winery out there. It's called Cosentino.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Cosentino Winery. You know, and I walked in there and I don't know anything about wines. I know that I've tasted wines wherever I went. I know what I like.
Right.
And I walked in there and people were, was, oh yes, and they're looking in the glass and everything.
Yeah.
And so I walked in there and the guy says, what do you want? I said, something that tastes good.
Okay.
He said, step in the back.
No wine snobbery here.
No wine. He said, step in the back. He says, you are? I said, oh, I'm, from Radio Valencia.
Yeah.
Oh, step in the back, And I stepped in the back and it was a private concern. And they had sausages and
what's going on? The party was in the back room.
And there was only about 20, 30, 40 people back there.
Okay.
And he said, what do you like? I said, Petite Syrah.
All right.
He said, oh, you've been around. I said, really? Not much.
Well, it's rare as an African American that you've been around the world into so many countries.
Right.
We know lots of folks here and other places has never even been to the beach.
That's true.
Okay.
We need to fix
just
that.
never been exposed to
We need to
the
fix
things that everyone should, because it enriches our lives. These are quality of life moments that you have. I'm fortunate enough because of going to college and universities, being exposed to opportunities that would take me outside of the country. But hell, the biggest adventure was going from right over here on 18th in Valencia, or out here in what is this, Lakeview, to UCSD when I graduated from high school. Right, I didn't know anything.
Wow.
But that opportunity was given me, and from there, here I am now. But the other part of this equation is I sought those out.
See, now
I
that's
put
the
myself in a
cliche.
position
That's the cliche right there. Your brain says, go,
Right,
and you went,
right.
and you educated yourself. Now,
Not knowing where it would eventually lead, but it was a good path to be on.
look at some of the most intelligent people I've ever seen in ghetto America that never goes anywhere. And
Right.
artists, they've got gorgeously beautiful artists.
Right.
They got every talent that we need, but we just need to get out there and cross that fence. Am I right?
Right. You're absolutely right.
And
That's
you can
why
do it, folks.
Yes, we can.
Parents, you can do it.
Right.
Get out of the bars and get away from the television on football and go out there and take your kids out.
Right.
I love that. I love the world.
I was talking to my museum project coordinator yesterday,
Uh,
and they're having a huge book fair, and it's called Barbers, Books, and Bridges. Barbers, Books, and Bridges is an Oakland-based nonprofit that works to strengthen community relationships and promote learning through culturally representative and empowering literature. So there's a book giveaway, community discussion on the crisis in black education, Saturday, February 11th at AAMLO, 659 14th Street. And so we're doing things like that to expose our young people to these kinds of activities where we're giving books away, and we hope that people will read them and love for literacy.
Let me tell you something. Inez Bradley Williams, Inez, she was Mexican and black, my mother was. She used to call us in at 5 o'clock, and we do arithmetic back then, and we would do history, sitting in the kitchen table, and she always had food ready. We'd eat and sit there and go through books and whatever we did, and that's where the basis of who I am and what I am today.
But learning was a fun activity, and your mom made it.
Oh, yeah, and she was a gorgeous woman too, on top of it. She was a gorgeous woman, She was really a gorgeous woman. And I'll tell you what, I loved her for all she was and all she is, and I sit there and I say to myself, hey, the basics, and this is what I say to parents today, take your children in tow.
Well, one of the things that is going to happen at this book giveaway I was just talking about is that in collaboration with the Girl Scouts, there are these two pieces of equipment. I'm not sure exactly how they work or what they do, but they supposedly, not supposedly, but they somehow teach young people about STEM program, and they cost $500 each of these units. Right? And my museum project coordinator were talking about how our kids would never be exposed to this kind of unit. Our parents wouldn't even know that this exists, but they're going to be at this book fair, so they'll get a chance to check them out. I'm not sure what it is, but we were saying, now I wonder, the other children are exposed to this technology. They have it, but we don't have it in our schools. We don't know. Our parents probably don't have it, can't afford it, but kids don't know about it. So instead of having this great little technological device the parents could buy, they probably wouldn't buy it, but they would probably buy an Xbox or a Nintendo or something that would cost us as much money.
We just had a guy on the show. Had a guy on the show not too long ago, and a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the accessibility of modern equipment to communicate with, and computers, where the Berkeley, where the Berkeley e-waste thing is on Frontage Road in Berkeley.
Okay.
They went out there and picked up a whole lot of computers. Nothing was wrong with them.
People just,
they were old.
in our disposable society, they were old a month after they bought them, so
Right,
they upgraded.
and they changed the hard drive in them, and nothing's wrong with them.
Right.
And our kids today they're sponging for information.
Yeah.
They're sponging.
Right.
They're absorbing every damn thing that you can absorb. So why not let's make it a personal thing in Black History Month to teach and to preach and to move forward. That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
And you guys are so damn good at it.
Well, we're trying, but sometimes we don't know if we are on the, in the same wavelength as the youngsters, because they talk a whole different language. These are words we don't even know what are they saying.
I desecrate the English language.
I love that part, but they do. There's certain things they do that we don't know about. So that's why it's important to have their voice at the table and to bring them in, and we keep trying to bring them in so we can listen and understand and develop the kinds of exhibitions or programs that interest that age group. It's hard looking, down and trying to assume.
It's hard because they see so much negativity every day.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something about something that happened about 2.5 years ago. I used to live on West Street, okay, and I was coming out of my door, and I was pretty well washed out because I had been working some long hours, and I just wanted to go jog for a while and run for a while, me and my dog. And I walked out, and this young kid was beating on his girlfriend, okay. And this is a good story. This is not a negative story, And I had a stick, that I carry with me to beat other dogs on. But my dog was a bull mastiff.
Okay.
So you jump on Pancho Villa, you jump in on. He's 135, 140 pounds, and that just to hit the other dog. And dude was beating on girlfriend, and I walked up to him with that stick, and I said, you know what? What's the problem? She says I'm pregnant and he don't want me, he don't want it. I said, tell her that you love her. And he busted into tears. He said, I don't know how. Could you imagine that?
He said he did not love her.
That's what he said.
Well, it gets back to what I was saying about first you got to be
That's
able to love
my point.
Yes.
That's
to
my
share
point.
and to give.
Do you know they're still together?
That's wonderful.
They got a little 2-year-old, and I see him every once in a while, and she made him get a job.
Right.
We're talking about moving forward. Anybody could traverse adversity if you want to.
Well, Chief, they've convinced us that we're not lovable. We're not worth loving. There's nothing in us that's lovable or good, so we kill each other.
You know what? That's a fallacy of BS that
Of course it is.
I've lived with it all my life.
Yeah.
And I say BS. Now you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I've lived without, because when I was on the road, you was talking about holistic medicine and old remedies.
Right.
I seen people take leaves and stuff like that, So I tell people I'm a real quack. I'm not a phony quack.
Yeah, because that's real knowledge.
I seen so much, and a guy they had beat him so bad one day, and he was coughing up blood, and the guy walked up with a ballpoint pen, and stuck it in a tracheotomy, and left it sticking out. He can breathe. I've seen all of that. And when you're on the road, you have to learn, what the doctor on, Don't drink out of streams that don't run, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And we here today, we have so much knowledge and we have so much brain power. That's what gets me about the damn school system.
It's not shared.
It's not shared.
Right.
And you know what? One of the things is, the requirements are so stringent for people to speak in schools now.
Mhm.
You have to be this, you have to be that.
Oh, I couldn't even get in, I couldn't get to speak to a teacher.
That's what
or a
I was
principal.
listening to you.
Not a single one. I think in 3 years, maybe I got one phone call. But we're going to be talking about that at AAMLO. There's another program we're having for Black History Month on the crisis in black education. I don't know if you know Brother Charles Wright.
I've heard of him.
So we're going to have a sit-down talk about education on February 25th, Saturday. I think it's the last Saturday of the
Right.
month. And we're going to sit down and talk about it. We're going to show his documentary.
Mhm.
He's been a long-time crusader in Oakland on this issue of education. He's written and been in a lot of battles, more than I can possibly tell you right now. But his DVD called Not For Sale is going to talk about this.
I've
So
heard
we're
of
gonna
that
be-
DVD.
Yeah, so
Not
we're going
For
to
Sale.
be engaged in a one-on-one
Yeah.
on February 20th. Talk about things like, just like what we're talking about today.
Mhm.
And Mr. Wright knows far more than I know about the inner workings of the school system and the kinds of battles they've come up against. and
Well, you
trying
know
to
what, let
share
me tell you
this
something.
education.
People of color, they use the high school system to get into jobs.
Mhm.
And then they cut out industrial arts. They
Yes.
didn't need all that. And the unions are crying, let us in, let us in, let us in. And the politicos in the schools that are just as ignorant as the day is old,
Right.
they don't understand what, I learned auto shop
Mhm.
in a high school.
Well, you could then. They had great
Yeah.
shops, didn't they?
Yeah, they had the,
You
and
could learn a
I
trade
learned
in
sheet
school.
metal. I
Yeah.
went to a sheet metal shop.
Yeah.
Then I went to an electric shop,
Sure. Yeah.
And I went back, and while I was on the road, I was in Abilene,
Mhm.
and I worked on a tractor, a 22-year-old tractor. The only thing that was
Alright.
wrong with the magneto was bad.
And you knew that.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and the guy had parked it in a barn and left it for 20 years.
But you're never going to get that kind of practical knowledge being taught in schools anymore because they've attacked, first of all, they've attacked the unions.
Right.
Very few of them left. Very few of them want to
Right.
stick their head up above the foxhole to get
That's
blown
true.
off. And then they've dismantled all kinds of vocational ed in
Right.
schools. And someone who recently was advocating bringing back vocational education. I was
They
thinking,
shut him down.
We already had it.
Yeah.
And you shut it down. But now they're shutting down the schools.
Now they're shutting down the school.
Okay, so there you go.
And that's what I want to say to the minority community. Look, learn, and search
Right.
and research. Am
Yeah,
I right?
You're absolutely right. Because, the best place to hide something is in plain sight. So all you got to do is look at what's happening, just look around you, look in your neighborhoods and see how many real public schools there are anymore.
Right.
No, that's been privatized and chartered.
Right.
That just is another way to make money off of education.
That's right.
They destroy the unions.
That creates a different class of people.
Absolutely.
We don't want that to happen in our community.
No, we don't. Because you know what? You can be dumb, but you don't have to be ignorant.
That's right.
You see, but they want the quiet, and I say they because we know who they are, but
Yes,
I
we do.
believe they exist.
Yep.
I'm convinced that they would like a dumb, acquiesced, entertained population because then you never, ever have to worry about it again.
Going into the incarceration system.
That's it, yeah. You can,
Yeah.
It's like the pot is boiling, but if you take the lid off a little,
Yeah.
it'll never boil over.
That's right.
So you just let it boil.
I saw a guy, I was on East 14th International, whatever you want to call the damn street,
Right.
and right there by 98th Avenue. And if you ever seen this guy, he was selling paintings out there.
Mm.
And I walked up and I says, where'd you find the paintings at? He said, me.
Mhm.
And I said, ooh. He said, do you want me to do a charcoal review? I looked at him, I said, what? He said, give me 20 minutes and $20.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there going, God, you gotta be joking me. Man,
Do.
I said, whew, we have talent.
Yeah.
We
do.
have
We
brains.
do.
We just need to have the faith and confidence in ourselves,
Absolutely. We've been trying to get, another brother, Ethan Berry, has
Mhm.
been, Ethan is based in Vallejo. His family for a long time had a foundation where they try to, have these different educational programs for African American
Mhm.
youth. But, I'm losing my train of thought for Ethan. He's been trying to organize these classes that will teach our kids coding. And it's been the most difficult thing, again, to not only get the young people and retain them, but get the parents interested. And
That's the
it
problem
was-
right there.
Yeah,
The parents.
parents interested in
Yeah.
getting them coding, not just for girls, coding for girls, that's great, but all these young people, and I've seen them in the projects they're working on and the apps they're developing.
Yeah.
It just like blows me away. And we're
It
talking
does.
about kids who are 9, 10, 12, and they're writing their own little code.
You
for
know, the
whatever little
Japanese
app
start
they
their kids
have.
out at 6.
To what? To just in general,
In
education.
general,
Yeah.
education.
Yeah. You can't ever
By
start.
the time
They're
they're-
ready. They're
Yeah.
ready out the womb.
We're talking, and I'm gonna share something with you. And I always tell them to shake your shorts, because people think that everybody, what they see is what they see, but what they don't know is what they see is not really there. One of the companies I work for, they did a canvas throughout the South, because people were talking about color and all this good stuff. And 60,000 people, 60,000, 36% of our vanilla soul brothers had sub-Saharan blood of significant value. Now,
So that's a good indicator of source of the
who we are,
origin of human civilization.
right? And you know, one of the things that
Mitochondrial Eve.
what do you
That's
call
it.
it?
Mitochondrial Eve.
Yeah, that's a
The
good
theory.
word.
That's the one of the theories that geneticists have come up with, and anthropologists and others, to talk about dispersion of humanity out of Africa. That
Right.
person originally was out of sub-Saharan Africa, closer down to what is now South Africa.
You know, me coming up in the early 40s, the very early 40s, I had a chance to talk with people born in 1850, 1870. My Aunt Fime was 102 years old when she died. So she died in 1965. So you go back 100 years, 102 years. My Aunt Charity was 105 years old when she died here in Berkeley. You know.
So they would have been born, what, like 1870s, 1880s?
Right, and I hitchhiked with a guy, his name was LeGroux. His name was Silas LeGroux. Believe it or not, that was his actual name, LeGroux.
That's a great old Victorian villain's name.
And Cyrus, not Silas.
That's it.
And
Okay.
he was like 80-something years old
And he's riding the rails?
in 1950, 58, 59.
And they've probably been doing it for
All of his life. He don't even know where he was born at.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And these are the people that born in the 1800s that I learned that this is what I want to transcend and put into life today, to let people know, to think about the positive and how great we are. Could you imagine that 36% of these out of 60,000 people has significant
Yeah.
20% or more of sub-Saharan blood?
So that throws the whole theory of the pure Aryan bloodline right out the window, doesn't it?
What? Thrown out.
It's totally absurd.
It kind of buried
It
it.
is. And it takes us right back to Spain, too, doesn't it?
That's right.
That's right.
And you know, I was at work one day and they had a lady came in, she did the genetics test. And she was blonde and blue and everything. And
Don't mean nothing.
they said to her, I ain't gonna mention no names either. And they told her, well, you're 51% sub-Saharan blood. And she said, well, my grandmother was Cherokee.
That's not what we're talking about.
No,
lady.
honey. You got blonde hair and blue eyes, but your blood tells the trick.
That's
you know.
right. That's right.
And she fell on the floor, dressed all up, you know, she yelling and screaming, what does that mean, I'm colored? And the husband says, get up, let's go home. Look at the kids, you're something else. And he said, it ain't Indian, honey.
No.
But you know what, that sub-Saharan blood is throughout the South like you would not believe.
I believe it. There's nothing wrong.
But nobody says anything about it, you know.
Right.
You know, nobody says anything about it.
Right.
But you think the KKK boys, you think they're going to admit, oh boy,
No.
you got a little bit of that stuff in you.
No.
Yeah, got a little bit of that stuff in you, baby. You know, but we're here, we're everywhere.
And
Yeah.
we've been here.
And we've been here.
We have been here.
We've been here.
For
Do you know
millions
we was
of
here
years,
before Christopher Columbus came.
Yeah, I can
You know,
believe that.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Great Land Bridge.
Mhm.
You know,
Or even if you're familiar with the works of the late Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, when he wrote, among other things, a book called "They Came Before Columbus,"
right.
and he talks about trade. He talks about ships traveling from the
Sure.
west coast of Africa, or even
Sure.
from East Africa,
Sure.
using the currents and the trade winds, of which they were aware. They weren't stupid. And when you look at getting back to the Spanish exploration, since we are in California and everything is sand this and sand that and all, it's very much tied in with the history of colonial history of Spain, that those people who were on the ships with them were people of color who knew mathematics, cartography. They knew climate.
They knew how to navigate.
They knew maps and they knew where they were going.
Yep.
And
But
that's
look,
why they
look at
took
look
them
at
with them.
look at one of the things that happened with the Borgia family in
Mhm.
Italy during the Renaissance.
Oh. You're taking it back to, now you're going back to the Middle Ages.
They were just astounded.
Yeah.
And so what they say, you know about the Coptic church, don't you?
Tell me more about out of Ethiopia.
Out of Egypt. That's where it is.
Okay.
It has a rendering of Christ and the 12 disciples.
Mhm.
And they're all black.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
everywhere.
Yeah.
We're anywhere now.
Well, they would have to have been pretty dark to be living over there anyway. You got to figure that just naturally, right?
Right.
You're right. Very, very dark.
You're very, and you know what? President of Egypt, his name was Gabal
Nasser.
Abdul Nasser.
Yeah.
1963.
Mhm.
You know, he said the Jews left
Mhm.
Africa, which was Egypt, was part of Africa.
Still is.
It still
Last
is.
time we checked, right?
The Jews left black and came back white. You know,
he
so
did say that.
he did.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm telling you the truth.
Sure,
That's not.
absolutely, he said it.
You know, it's not something I'm just making up. I wouldn't do that on the air because somebody come back at me.
Well, there are a lot of reasons that the West hated Nasser, and that is probably one of them.
they
probably put that over.
They
Yeah.
hated Nasser.
They did hate Nasser.
He was a
because
fox.
He was not going to be their boy.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Mm-mm. And the bad thing about it, he got a lot of money from us.
Well, they played the game.
He milked the hell out of us.
That's the
You know,
game.
built all this stuff. You know, did all this stuff.
Mhm.
He was a tyrant,
Yeah.
but he was a truthful.
But he did say,
You know.
whatever else he may have said, that part was right.
Yeah.
It was total whitewashing.
As Mara, Ethiopia, if anybody really do some
Mhm.
research on that,
Mhm.
that's 5,000 years. The church says 5,000 years old.
Well, they claim that's where the ark is.
They claim
They
that.
claim they have the ark of the covenant.
They claim they have dark.
Mhm.
You know, and one of the things is, if you really look around at who we are and what we are,
Mhm.
we're the greatest thing on earth.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned,
All right.
you can tell the lily whites and like going back to the south. Y'all got some of that blood in you too.
Well, I would just say that we have no apologies to make. And I think one of our issues are that we swallow too much hook, line, and sinker, that there's something wrong with us.
Right.
So if people don't want us around, it must be something we did or said.
Right.
No, it's because they know of our history. They know they have to deny us that if they want to treat us the way they do.
But it's a jealousy factor.
Absolutely. It's
That's what have the confidence that it's a jealousy factor.
Well,
Am I right?
yeah, I think so. There's certainly an envy there and an evil that I don't understand and I can't fathom, because it's not a rational thing. It's an irrational.
It's
behavior.
irrational. Yeah.
And that's what makes it so difficult to eradicate, I think, because it's not reasoned. It's not based on.
Well, one of the things I want to tell you that I've learned all my life is the fact that they're always going to try to separate us and put fissions against us. Fissions is like divide. You know, that's how they keep us where we are. You know, and society has done it for over 150 years. Divide us.
Yeah, I recently read a book called Africa in Alabama, and it was about the last slave ship that was smuggled in from the U.S. in 1865, I think, into near Mobile. And on the ship there are, I think, 115 Africans. And this is long after, the first ship pulled up in Jamestown. So you had generations of us who had been somewhat acculturated. But they gave, the African-American slaves, the enslaved people there, gave the Africans such a difficult time, calling them savages and making fun of their language and their clothing and their scarification, because they were taught that they were inferior, and this group was more inferior than even they were. That's how we've treated each other. We've just
We need to get away from
ostracized
that.
them. you know, you blackie, you this, you that, you, and so on, so, and we just downed ourselves to just grind ourselves into the ground. In this community, they were forced to stay together to form what, and I was really amazed because I knew about the ship Clotilde. That was the last slave ship.
There's a Lake Clotilde in outside in Louisiana.
Is that right?
Lake Clotilde. Well, they call those people Ebos.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
Now, okay. Now,
They're the
we
Igbo.
need to get back to that because this group, over time, Chief, developed their own little town. They called it an African town, and some of their descendants are still there. I don't know if any of the, you know, the original properties or homes or anything that are there, but it's right there outside in Mobile. But they gave these people such a difficult time that they didn't know who the enemy was. Was it the white folks or was it the other black folks?
Well, you know what? There's a place called Bayou Chastain, Bayou Buck, Bayou Lafouche, and Bayou Chastain. These people live back in there. And when I was a kid, when I was really young, you know, I used to see these people come out. They come out for like sugar and molasses and stuff, but they go right back in the bayou. You know, they were river captains.
Yes.
They worked the river.
Right.
You know, they worked all the barges.
Yeah, they were the masters of those inlets and those riverways.
And you know, you say, well, wait a minute, where did they learn all this? They passed their heritage and their history down to each other.
Right.
And you know, and my grandpa and I, we went back in there. I think I was like, I was young. I was like 6, 7, right in there, 8. And right before we came out here, I had to be 8, 9. And we took a P-roll and we went back and then he was telling me about these people that live in the bayou, you know. And up until the 80s and 90s, they were still there.
Well, we have those enslaved Africans, those who refused to be slaves, escaped and formed their maroon communities and refused to anybody to come in there and take them out. And pretty soon they even struck treaties with some of the landowners, like, you just don't come raid our plantations and take anybody else away from here, and we'll leave you alone. And they were saying, we know you're going to leave us alone. We're not asking you.
Yeah.
We know you are going to leave us alone because we're going to make sure of it. And they left them alone. So you have a lot of those communities. You had them in Jamaica, Guyana.
And Jamaica was a big one.
Yes. You had them even in the swamps in Florida.
Right.
Louisiana.
And you know, with the Seminoles, they married a lot of the Seminoles.
Right.
They cross-raced the Seminoles.
Right.
And you know, Osceola, well, you know, one of the lords of the Seminole Nation.
Right.
You know, he was a mix.
Yeah. So that history's there, and it's fascinating when it's not mentioned, because when you talk about it, you're talking about Africans standing up for themselves and fighting back and saying, no, this little thing about you enslaving me wasn't just, we just decided, oh, we're going to enslave you, and we just said, okay. It's all right.
But you know what? Here we are talking about something that most people do not even know about. And you know what? And this is the one thing that, you know, to the flakes and fakes of the day, as the old man say, if you want to wear your heritage, learn your heritage of who you are.
Right.
And the biggest thing about our heritage is, if you notice, from day one, even in the Roman Empire, we were educated.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just this generation here is just done dropped the ball, you know. And school is free.
And access to information has never been so it's
God.
right. You can get so much information at the drop of a hat now. You don't have to go to, you know, dusty old library and pull out this book and come back 2 weeks. And it's all there 24/7.
Yeah.
A lot of it's crap, but there's a lot of jewels. There's
Yep.
a
You know,
lot of information.
not too long ago, I was on MacArthur and Martin Luther King. And here's a young kid out there with a laptop, with an Apple. And he just going through it. And I said, hey man, what kind of business you in? He said, you don't really want to know, Chief. I said, but you got an Apple computer.
He wasn't selling lemonade.
He wasn't selling.
He didn't have a lemonade stand.
No lemonade stand. And I said, well, you use that damn thing very well. He said, man, this is the thing of the future. He says, I control my life and everybody's life around me. I said, oh, it's like that. He said, you can't beat it. He said, and people here, they just watching, you know. And I said, well, why don't you teach them how to do it? He said, oh, no. He said, then they gonna take my business away.
Now that ain't right.
But you know, the
Right.
point of the matter is,
He was plugged in.
he was plugged in hardcore. And I asked him, where did he learn it? He said, I go home every night, I teach myself this, I teach myself that.
All right.
I was impressed. I wasn't impressed with what he does, but you know,
But
the
he was
fact that,
being
you know,
very-
and anybody can do that.
Being very
And I keep
entrepreneurial.
saying that, you know, we can do,
Yeah.
you know.
Because as difficult as things are,
Yeah.
the opportunity, we can't argue the fact that the opportunity does exist.
Right,
Depends on how hard you have to work to get it, but at least the opportunities are here.
right. You don't have to have a $700 computer.
No, you don't.
You can, you know, this.
Most of the kids, our kids, you know, it's a matter of financing and the whole issue
Sure.
of digital. They do everything on their phones.
That's right.
So that's a whole skill set that I know nothing about.
And them two little fingers.
Yeah.
I have one finger action.
Uh-huh.
You know, they got their thumbs going. You know.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
I still get the one finger action going.
No.
But you know what? We're so privy to so much out there, and that's what I tell parents. You know, and people ask me a lot of stuff. Well, you know what? One lady, I was at this place on Fruitvale, right there, Fruitvale, and East 14. I still call it East 14.
Okay.
You know, and I was eating, and this woman walked up to me. She said, "Chief, you talk a whole lot of stuff. I know who you are." And I said, "Oh, baby." She said to me, she said, "You need to go home with me and talk to my husband." I said, "Well, I ain't going home," which to start off with, number one, looking at girlfriend. I said, "But I don't know about talking to your husband." So the guy called me up. He says to me, he said, "We listen to you all the time." I said, "Okay." He said, "And everything you say is real." I said, "You know what? Why don't you just come with me sometime?" And I went to a church out there, and we spent like 3 or 4 hours at auto show at Actual Gospel, you know, a couple of years ago. And I took him. He sits on the couch all day. You know, and he's only 51, 52 years old, and he's have all these problems, back problems, leg problems, you know. And he was eating out of cans, believe it or not. You know, he just hooked him a can up, put it in hot water like a lot of people did in the South.
That's old, yeah, that's
old
old
stuff. And he was having all these health problems. And I said to him, I said, "Why don't you try going to the market and eating?" So we went out a couple of times to different, we went to Good Guys, you know, and I hadn't seen him for about 6 or 7 months. This guy lost 31 pounds in 6 months.
All right.
And I looked at him and I said, "Hello."
Uh-huh.
And he said, "You know what?" He said, "Communication. Somebody talking to me."
Yeah.
He says, "And I'm gonna build me a Camaro." And he was looking for a 71 Camaro to build.
All right.
You know, but we have to talk to each other.
Yes.
We have to motivate each
Mhm,
other.
mhm.
We have to get into each other's head.
We do.
You know, and he calls me every so often. He got a 427 loan.
He did.
He did it.
Getting on this talking issue, I'm so glad you mentioned it. I was talking to a parent the other day, and I'm father of 4 sons. My sons are all grown, and my wife was talking to a young parent who's having difficulty with their teenager, and she said something she said all the time. She said, "Whatever you do, just don't stop talking. Just keep talking.
Yeah.
You may not think they're listening to you, but they are
Here's something.
listening to you." And so we can't stop talking to our...
We're doing this. We're doing a whole lot today. Black History Month. We're talking about Black history. You know, we're talking about Black history. You know, we're talking about what we can do, how we can do, where we've been. And one of the things we said, you know, get away from the negativity. And I want to say to the people on Facebook who are putting all the gory stuff out, you know, people dismembered and all that kind of stuff. Let's put something out positive. Let's put stuff about education. Let's put something out there that, I don't know why. The other day, they were talking about breaking the buck. You know, they were acting like it was something, the lady was acting like it was something horrendous, you know, something everybody should know. We don't want to hear all this stuff. We want to hear about how to go forward. Am I right?
Yeah, because I'm not a part of the Facebook community,
Yeah.
so what is breaking the buck?
We'll
You don't want to talk about it?
You know, we'll talk about that.
I
off
told you
air,
I did
but,
not.
you know,
I
it's
told
just,
you I was ignorant of the language.
It was when slave masters used to have sex with men. And you know, we need to get from back yonder. We need to get up there.
Yeah.
You know, we need to talk about education. We need to talk about propelling and, invigorating put some stuff out there to get people, because they're saying that 6 million Americans, black Americans, a year fall through the cracks. So unemployment, into, whatever, incarceration.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
There certainly is. I am reading right now a book called The New Jim Crow by
Right.
Michelle Alexander.
Yeah,
If
I've
you've
heard of
all
that.
heard about that
Mhm.
book, you need to pick it up.
Yeah.
Check it out. Although I know there's been a lot written and said about the new Jim Crow penal system.
Right.
But I think that Alexander does probably one of the better job of really breaking this thing down, really taking it back, even to post-Civil War
Right.
statutes and these kinds of actions that were taken against black men.
Well,
And the
right
control
now,
of their
right,
person
right
and
now,
their labor.
right now, your AAU is, did I say that right? Yeah, the library,
The AAMLO?
AMLO.
Mhm.
The library is, it's a trove of, that's the old British word, trove, of information, positive stuff. You know what? You need to plant this in your kids. That's my whole point about that. If you just go look at this place, and I hate the hell you taking the bus away.
Not yet, though.
Not yet.
It'll be there.
But you know what? The art there is so unique, and the art there is so positive, and it puts on family. The way I got it, it talks about family.
It does. We do. Of course, family central.
Yeah.
Central to, I'll tell you what, another thing that's central is our health.
Mhm.
And to that end, we have had for probably the last 3 or 4 years a seed lending library.
Mhm.
And of course, the way this works is if you have a garden, a plot, and your vegetables go to seed, you can bring some of that seed to AMLO, and we have an old card catalog, and it's just filled with different seeds from different fruits and vegetables that people have grown, and we exchange that because we're losing control of the quality of the product and what we're eating. We don't know what we're eating. Every time we try to fight this GMO products in our food and labeling, we get kicked back, and corporations just give us the backhand. So, and what's I think the upshot of this eventually is control over what you can or cannot grow,
Well,
whether you can have seeds or not. So we are participating in
I don't
eating
think
healthy.
anybody know about that.
Well, that's what I want to bring this up, because we're doing
Seeds.
Seeds. Grow your own food, like we used to grow our own food. At least you'd be
Mhm.
assured of something. We don't know if they got nanobots, technobots, whatever kind of bots they're putting in our food to control us. Who knows? I don't want to get off on a conspiratorial rant, but we are in America.
Hey, I was a chief engineer. I used to be on the circuit years ago, and a friend of mine out in South City, there was a packing house out there, and there was another one in Stockton I used to go do the refrigeration for, And they have these big blocks of white powder when they grind in the hamburger, And I said, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Monosodium glutamate, cyclamates, this is all preservatives.
In the meat before you ever buy it.
Before you ever buy it. And they got this big old thing with the arm in it, and they're mixing up, and they put 30, 40, 50 pounds of fat in it, and they just bring this fat, and it's not cured in anything. They just bring and throw like maybe 60, 70 pounds in it. And the guy said, well, this was 33% fat. I said, 33%. He said, yeah. He said, this is for the poor people.
Yeah, right.
You
Grease. They get to eat the grease.
And I want to say something to Mona Childress. Mona is working art, a work of art, I should say. Mona weighed 254 pounds. And, she was pregnant and didn't even know it. And she lost almost 80 pounds over 2.5 years. Just from not eating red meat.
Yes.
From Safeway or wherever you got, just red meat in general, that's
Yeah.
it. But she got off of red meat and got off of white flour. The only two things, and she loves to bake cookies, and every time she bakes, she calls me over there, and I go. You're damn right.
So you found those 22 pounds when you eat your cookies?
She lost 80 pounds all total.
Okay.
80
80 pounds, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But when you talk about, let's say for example, ground beef, we know that when they were doing a lot of mad cow a few years ago,
Mhm.
suddenly all gone away. Not to say that the problem's gone away, we just don't hear about it. That they were saying the problems with ground beef, especially ground beef that's sold to people who are financially difficult straits and have to eat that food, that this beef comes in from all over, and you don't know where the beef, you may come from a healthy stock, a diseased stock, but they blend all that together,
Yes.
and there's no way they can trace the source.
Well, I'm gonna throw something at you, okay? It's called bovine growth hormone.
Yes.
You're educated, so you know about that.
Right.
It attacks the pituitary gland, your kidneys, and your liver. You know,
Right.
and your pancreas.
Yeah.
So this thing is just, it makes, it will turn, and it's in milk. It will turn a 60-pound calf into a 300-pound monster quick. So what will it do to the human being?
We don't know. That's the thing, they don't know for long term.
Right.
Because they don't do long term studies.
They don't care.
Because that costs money.
That's right.
So they don't care whether you live or die. Actually, they want you to die, but die quickly.
Sure. But it's all about you know where we are and what we're doing, you know, and how we're going to go by in life. You know, look in the black community itself. You know, you see obesity is running rampant.
Absolutely.
You know, and people are dying of heart attacks.
And they're reducing the attack on public health care systems. So
Oh, yeah.
Case in point is they don't care whether or not you live or die.
And we're back again. Segment number 909,362, or something like that. That's a real bad number, isn't it? And Miriam, you want to put your stuff out there again? The number.
Yes.
And you have some programs. Talk about some programs.
All right. Let me tell you about a program that we're going to have in March. You can mark your calendar for Women's History Month. We're having a spoken word and a book signing event featuring one of Oakland's own up-and-coming authors, Sia DeLovely. That's on Saturday, March 25th. We being the African American Museum and Library at Oakland, are at 659 14th Street, it's 14th and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in downtown Oakland. You can call to RSVP for any of the events that you hear about today at 510-637-0200. That's 510-637-0200. We're also going to have, during Black History Month, another book signing event featuring Professor Sonia T. Williams, who's written a book called Word Warriors. It chronicles the life of gifted broadcast dramatist, journalist, and political strategist Richard Durham, who used his eloquent literary voice to fight for freedom, equality, and justice for all. So I'm interested also in finding out more about Dr. Williams' book on Richard Durham. So we have lots of book signings, events coming up. I mentioned my talk with one-on-one with Oscar Wright, February 25th at 2 p.m. at AAMLO. So lots of things going on, and the doors are still open. And here's the other thing, all of our programs are free.
Ooh, get out of here. No dinero.
No dinero, no charge to the public. We never have, and hopefully never will.
You know, I keep pushing AAMLO, and it just makes me feel good. And I want people out there to understand, again, that you have a place to take your children that's positive. And you need to get off your butts and get off the couches and get out of the football games, the basketball games sometime, and and having people over and invest in your children a little bit more, because it goes a long way. They're looking to you, the parent, to be the parent. You're not a friend of your children. You got to be the parent. Before you buy that nice new Cadillac, think of some education. Before you take that trip, think some education for your kids. And the fact that, you know what, if you do that now, you ain't got to worry about them later. Kick them out, baby. Put them on. Yeah, you gotta go. You
But
know,
they'll be ready to go.
they'll be ready.
Ready to fly.
Yeah, they'll be ready to fly.
I don't think we make enough of an investment, and I hate to generalize,
Mhm.
so forgive me, but I just don't think enough investment in our youth are made on behalf of, either, maybe sometimes our parents, but definitely our organizations and others that should be stepping up and filling the void that exists now, since government is saying that they're not responsible for paying for this or for that, it's all on you. If that's the case, let it be on us. Let's just take care of business and do it. So
You
we
know,
have nobody else to blame.
You know, you keep saying over and over and over again, your organization is people orientated. It's very simple. It's open. It's free. And what else can you say?
I don't know. What else can I say about it other than we're here, we're available, we're accessible. I know, we're doing the job. We do know, however, that the public face of museums and libraries are changing. Everything's changing in our society, and rapidly so. But we don't know what the new library is going to be or look like. We don't know what the new museum is going to be. But we're still trying to stay at the point and abreast of being an organization that at least provides some kind of usable service to its communities of some value, if only as a place to meet, to dialogue, to talk, and not solve the big problems of the world. Sometimes it doesn't take that.